It's a warm summer night as you camp out with some friends. You're so far away from any source of artificial light that you can see every star in the night sky. You crack open a cold drink, maybe a soda over a beer, and then sit back and relax. You listen to the cicadas and crickets sounding off in the night near a calm campfire. But then you look up at the sky and see a large figure slowly drift across it. It's hard to make out, but you wonder what it could have been. You try to enjoy the rest of your night, but you can't stop thinking of what you saw even as you drive home listening to the radio. This thought ran through my head as I watched the intro to this game, as an unknown being lands on Earth and is confronted by the US military. It seemed like a strange and disturbing idea that looked quite interesting, so I decided to check it out. And all for $5, that's a pretty good deal. So sit back and relax as I take a look at this point-and-click puzzle game, I Dream of You and Ice Cream. A sinister doll-like entity has come from space and has enslaved all of mankind. It's an interesting premise and has a great sense of mystery to it. And with a main villain that looks like Woody from Toy Story, it definitely piqued my interest. You are Every day we explore this lab and begin to figure out exactly what's been going on. As this goes on, we gather components to build a machine with an unknown purpose, and at the end of each day, we dream of a love interest and childhood memories of ice cream.
Many people thought they heard.
We navigate this lab using point-and-click controls and solving its many puzzles. Nothing too complicated, but there are some interesting mechanics present. First off, up in the corner you have this hourglass, which highlights what you can click on. I like this because you don't have to click all around, making sure you don't miss a small object that you may need later on. It's a nice little time saver. The second mechanic is when you solve a puzzle, you get half a star. Once you get a full star, you can use it to help you solve a puzzle. It's an interesting mechanic and helps the player on really tricky puzzles that can be hard to do. I'm sure at one point when playing a game, we all had to look up an answer to something or figure exactly where we need to go. This pretty much does this to a lesser extent, but instead helps the player by pushing them in the right direction instead of solving it outright. The puzzles aren't too bad, but some can be a little confusing at times. This puzzle here. I know what I need to do, but I'm not exactly sure how I'm supposed to get that solution. I wish I could tell you how I solved this puzzle, but to be honest, I had no clue. I just kind of pressed the arrows and just eventually worked. For the most part, they are pretty straightforward, and it just takes a minute to figure out exactly what you need to do. Overall, enjoyable, but nothing too riveting.
So, we've been talking about the shows I've been doing people.
One of the first things you're going to notice is this. I think it's a very unique way of storytelling instead of using regular speech bubbles. It's handled very well and adds a unique, mysterious atmosphere to this game, as the pictures slowly describe what the scientists are saying to you. It definitely adds a lot, especially when we get to these meetings. At the end of each day, the scientists gather and wait for Woody to ask them a question about humanity. His design is odd to say at the least, but I feel like this might have been intentional. The game could have gone with a very simple alien design and called it a day, but I think they decided to take this route because at first you may chuckle at it, but its blank expression and cold dead eyes make it seem so much more scary the more you begin to look at him. It also speaks in this very creepy robotic scream. And if none of those reasons convince you, I feel like this might.
Holy shit, you fucking killed her, dude!
And this is where the symbol-based dialogue begins to shine. Since it's slowly shown, it begins to add tension, and even the speech bubble begins to shiver, giving the dialogue a little bit more personality. It makes every meeting feel so much more scary, as we aren't sure exactly how Woody's going to react to the answer. The quiet lab also keeps the mood mysterious and dreadful as well. The game is pretty quiet overall, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, as it makes the lab feel lonely and depressing. There's also these weird robot soldiers that also try and set the mood. The funny thing is, they aren't very intimidating after you realize all they really do is yell at you. I touched this drill like 10 times, and every time he just came in, told me not to touch it, and then walked right out the door. Overall, all I got was just a scolding from this robot. The other bit of the story is this repeating dream sequence that I mentioned earlier in the review. I found out that during times of heavy stress, recurring dreams are more likely to occur. And considering impending death, I would say that makes a lot of sense. I like the bit of backstory it gives our nameless protagonist, and it shows how they long for a better time when things are much simpler. We also get these cutscenes that show how our protagonist actually got into this mess. Sadly, it wasn't by choice, as the world voted for who to send. Even though our protagonist tries to do the right thing, I began to wonder if they actually resented the duty that they were involuntarily given. I would have loved to see more cutscenes like this, because as the game went on, I became more curious of how the world got to this point. I would have loved to talk to more of the scientists as well, but it may have been hard to do considering how the dialogue's set up. There's this one conversation you have with these two scientists which is actually quite interesting. It explains how powerful Woody actually is, and he can basically kill anyone from almost anywhere, which is quite terrifying. It's a nice bit of world building, and it shows us the impending doom that we have to live with. Overall, there's a very interesting presentation here, but some of it can be kind of stale at times, as the quiet lab can also get kind of boring. Since you're only listening to the beeps and bops of the lab, I think an ambient track would have been nice to add as well. Overall, there's a very interesting story here, it's just exploring the lab at times can be kind of stale.
I'm on TV every night for 2 hours straight live. It is just me.
After solving all the puzzles that are in the lab, we can now assemble our machine. The only difference this time is that we are actually called into the meeting instead of all the other scientists. The meeting goes as normal, and then Woody calls someone up to answer a question. But this time, a scientist decides to run for his life. Woody goes berserk and kills all the scientists, including our character. Cut to our room, and the machine actually moves off its dock, and we now have full control of it. We drive into the meeting room, and Woody tries to kill us with his ear-piercing scream, but it's no use as we continue to drill into him with each click of our mouse. Woody is now defeated, the scientists are relieved, and the machine returns back to our room. A lush, calm, comforting ambient soundtrack plays as the machine sets itself back up on the dock. We then enter into an eternal dream as a comforting blue sweeps across the screen just before the credits roll. The ending is interesting and bittersweet. I liked it though, and it fits the theme of the game about a character who can only find solace in their own dreams. As I played through the game, I was pretty sure we weren't going to be able to make it out of this alive. The oppressive atmosphere of the lab and how the scientists we talked to would disappear each day didn't spell out a good ending for our character. It's a good ending, and it ties the game up in this nice little bow.
But there was a major problem.
As always, I'm just going to tell you if I recommend the game or not instead of just giving a general score. And to be honest, I think the game has a very interesting and mysterious story, and the puzzles are very fun as well. My only negative with the game is even though I did like the lab's oppressive atmosphere, I do think there was a little bit more that could have been done. I would have loved to talk to more scientists and maybe have some readable notes or something like that to give us some more backstory. But considering a good chunk of the game's work was done by one person, that could be a lot to ask. Overall though, I definitely do think it's worth your time, and if I have piqued your interest, definitely check it out on Steam. I'd like to say thank you for watching, I really do appreciate it, and also appreciate the feedback I got from the last video. If you'd like to support the channel, like, comment, and subscribe, it really does help out a lot.